Hello, good morning. Welcome to today's live. I realized that I get a lot of questions in my inbox or in my YouTube channel, so I figured I'll be doing these Q&A regularly, probably maybe every Friday or something like that, because I realized there's some benefit to that. So again, if you watch this live, maybe a bit later, and you have some questions, you can post under the videos. What I do is I regroup all the questions and I do a live and I answer so that it's a little bit easier for me because I don't have to go and manually key in all the answers. And it's also value for you to have me on live so you can ask your questions. So that's it. Okay, so let's get started and hopefully I get more people that join in and want to ask their question. So first question from Edu. So I'm not sure if that's the name. I'm university graduate, BSc in engineering, Google Zurich, willing to sponsor my work permit. So maybe because it's a big organization, big company. Although I have no experience, will it be possible to get a work permit visa? So I think you have your answer in your question there. I'm not trying to be facetious about this, but whenever you're applying for a job in Switzerland, it's your company's role to apply for the work permit. So you don't have to worry about that as long as you get a job. So if Google Zurich is willing to hire you, then they have to give you a work contract and they will have to get you a work permit. So you don't have to worry about that. It's up to them. What I did see happen, and it's happened with someone who actually contacted me from Israel, and you have the video is there somewhere in my channel. It was about a month or a month and a half ago. So it was a non-EU wanting to work in Switzerland from Israel, and we addressed this together about companies that call you and they have interviews, and then at the end it didn't work. And of course, the big reason was because they realized that it would be too hard to get a work permit. So sometimes what will happen, I hope it doesn't, but it can, is that a company will get excited about hiring you. They will want you to come on board. They will start interviewing you, and maybe you have a second interview. And then they realize, oops, it's a non-EU or someone we can't get a work permit for. Because then what happens is that maybe human resources will intervene and say, look, don't hire this person. It's going to be extremely complicated to get a work permit. Why don't you find another resume? Look, you have 200 resumes here from this application. Please, avoid hiring someone from non-EU. It gets really complicated from an administrative standpoint. So the answer to your question is, if they're willing to hire you and they're serious about it and you go through all the steps, then they will worry about your work permit and you don't have to think about it. So yeah, just be careful because sometimes, again, they might be very excited about your application and, they provide an expectation from your end. And then after the fact, you realize it's not going to work because at some point, someone will raise the issue like, oops, we didn't think about the nationality issue. So just be cautious. I think for all of you watching, if you do interview with Swiss companies, they call you, you get an interview, just be aware of that it might work out. Maybe they can get you a work permit, but also maybe at some point someone will say, oops, you can't get a work permit. So just go through the motion. Okay, next person, Shalom. Hello, Isabelle. Thank you for your valuable video. I started 2 months ago an online business. I don't have a company ID. So I'm not sure what a company ID is. So could you please send me a link on how to set up company ID in Switzerland? Thanks a lot. Well, first of all, in this question, if you have an online business, it really doesn't matter where you're based, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, hey, for all I know, I could be based in Dubai right now and be actually very warm. I'm actually sitting where it's very cold right now. It's snowing outside. I mean, some people love it. I personally like a warmer climate, would be a preference. So I would say if you have an online business, go and live where you are happy to live and where it suits you. And Switzerland, again, is not the easiest country to set up a business. You have to prove that you have clients, that it's a viable business. So online businesses are very junior at this date. For most people, Again, you do have very successful online business owners that are already out there making a lot of money, etc. But it's also, you have people who are starting. Obviously, what I'm reading in this email is that you're starting out. So probably you don't have the proof of concept yet. You don't have clients or enough clients. So you would need to grow that a little bit before you can go to the Swiss authority and say, I want to set up a business. Because they would say, look, you don't have enough visibility, your business is not big enough, we're not going to grant you a work permit and give you a status, a setup for your company at this stage. So really worry about developing your business wherever you are. It's the easiest thing. You can set it up much easier. And then when you see that it's growing, go where you have the most attraction with your business. And usually it's going to be where you have your network, when you have your history, where you have worked for many years, because people know you. It's easier to convince people who know you, who worked with you maybe. So develop, an online business is easy, again, to go from anywhere. So go where you have the best network, where you know people, you can get resources. And then when you see that it's working well, and maybe you're like, yeah, I'd like to live in the Swiss mountains, that would be great. Then you can take that to Switzerland and say, look, I have a growing business. I set it up X years ago. I have doubled the sales. And then you're more credible to get what you call a company ID, which I would call more opening in actual business with your status, so just choosing a status and opening an actual business in Switzerland. So for all of you who are watching and you want to start a business, start it where it's easy for you, where you have your network, especially if it's online. I mean, you don't need to be in Switzerland for an online business. What you can do is cater to the Swiss market, but really now people buy from anywhere. So you could be based in Thailand, as far as I know, and sell in Switzerland. It's possible. If you have a product that really the Swiss love, and maybe it's the Thai thing or the Chinese thing, or hell, the Chinese are selling in Switzerland. So you don't have to be based in Switzerland. Now, if it's a preference based on the lifestyle, then I would worry about that as a second selection. Like when you start having income and business is doing well, then you can choose to live in a better location that you enjoy more. So step by step, get the income, get the business growing, and then you can choose where you want to live and grow from there. Okay, Maria is saying, married 4 years. I'm here in Switzerland for 3 years, I guess. And 1 year ago, separated from my Swiss husband. Can you give me advice with visa? I have a B permit and I'm separated. Well, if you don't have a job, your permit will expire with the marriage. So, I don't know exactly what kind of work you could do, because I think it probably gives you some kind of a transition period to help you find a job, but it's going to be short, knowing that the market is tough and probably you don't have a lot of experience if you weren't working during that time. So, I'm not sure what to say. I think, unfortunately, that happens. If you live with somebody and you haven't worked in the country where you are and then it ends, then probably the best bet would be to go back again where you have your nationality of origin, try to get some experience there. And then maybe because you know Switzerland, because you live there, come back later with skills, with your experience, and you're a bit more attractive to the Swiss market. Because a person who hasn't worked, doesn't have a lot of experience, no education or very little education, is going to have a hard time entering the Swiss market. So, go back, train yourself, come back with a bang, so to say. So you leave, you train yourself where it's not going to be hard for you to get trained, to get the skills, and then you come back with a bang. But I think if you're there and you haven't really worked or grown your experience, it's going to be difficult. Okay, Olivier is saying, I'm a French national. I hold a French passport and a French ID card. I'm currently living in Thailand and I plan to move to Geneva. I think living in Thailand in the winter is probably the best thing. Especially now, I would love to be in Thailand right now with 28 degrees. So plan to move to Geneva next year. I need to find a place to stay while I'm in Geneva to establish the residence, and I look for a job. I would do it the other way. I would look for the job first and then come and live, because what's happening is that if you move to Switzerland and you get a place, then you have expenses. So the day when you put your foot inside the country, you have expenses. So you have to pay for, and even if you share a flat or something like that, it can be very fast. So you have the rent, food, anything. So it's going to add up. I don't know if you have savings, maybe you can use and you want to test it for a while and see what happens. But again, the chances right now with the economy not being on top and everything, I'm just saying, usually I tell clients, get the job first and then you move, because again, the security part. So if you wanted to pursue and really say, okay, I want to come, I want to live there, make sure you have some savings, because again, it's not the type of country like, maybe in Thailand, I would assume, some of these locations where you come and you can find some gigs quickly and get some money quickly, especially as an expat in the Southeast Asia. Usually you have a lot of those things where you can work there. In Europe and especially in Switzerland, it's not an easy market to get those odd jobs like teaching a language. You're saying you're an English teacher. This is not something you get immediately in Switzerland. So I'm just saying, if that's what you want to come to Switzerland, look at the market, try sending some applications to test, to see if you get some feedback, or is it the crickets? I think right now you have a lot of teachers who are going to, the ones that are working online are probably doing better because of the crisis. But if you haven't even built courses online and things like that, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So you say, I speak many languages, English, French, Laotian, Thai, and Vietnamese. Laotian, Thai, and Vietnamese are not going to be sought after in Switzerland. So there's already a lot of French teachers. So you would have to come maybe with a very special offer, something that people would really like. But to do that, you need to understand the market very well to give the kind of offer people are looking for. So I would say study the market right now. You can do that online by seeing already what's out there, what are other teachers offering, for how much and how they're working. Also maybe do some research on what people want with Google Forms. You can do some surveys on the groups online. There's lots of expat groups. One of them that I advise you to check is Glocals. So you can type Glocals on Google and you can find this group. A lot of Swiss people are in this group and looking for those things like teaching and teachers and all that stuff. So that's a resource. Also in Facebook groups, you have a lot of groups in Facebook for expats in Geneva, and same thing with LinkedIn, where you could do a quick survey to say, hey, if you had the perfect French course, what would that look like? Or what do you think, what do you need right now in terms of language skills? What time do you have to give to that project, so that you can build an offer. And then once you build the offer, you can just put it out there. Now, I would argue you don't need to be in Switzerland to teach French. You could be teaching French from your location. But again, it's the same thing as, I believe, Shalom, who asked about setting a business, is the same thing. Start where you are, get some income, see if your offer is growing. And then if the preference is to work from Switzerland, then you can do that as a second movement type of thing. So get your business going first, get your offer going first. And then if that works out, then you move. And then you invest in living in Switzerland, because it's going to be an expense. So then you say, to start looking for a job, I think it's better to go through temp agencies for getting hired. Okay, so that's more for being an employee. I would imagine, again, happy to be told otherwise, but my big guess is if you go in job boards right now and check for teachers, there's not going to be a lot for teaching French. Mostly it would be because, again, those other languages are not going to be in demand. So in the French part, and then in the Zurich part, they would want a German teacher. So German and French are really the languages that expats need to learn usually. So to start looking for a job, I think it's better to go through temp agencies. So temp agencies are not going to be massively hiring at the moment for that particular role. I decide to look for sharing a room. So I just addressed this about sharing a room. Even if you do that, it's still going to be at least minimum 500 Swiss francs. So that's a sum, especially if you compare that to what you could make in Thailand. Probably what you make in Thailand in 1 month is not going to buy your food even in Switzerland because of such a huge difference of cost of living. So letter renting my own apartment. So I would say before you make those expenses, relocation, all that stuff, which by the way, you wouldn't be able to reside in Switzerland until you have a work permit for a job. So you can't come and live in Switzerland. You have to get a job first to get a work permit and to stay in Switzerland. So now you could come if you're an EU citizen, you have these 90 days. So you could come as a tourist on a tourist visa. And then if you find someone, there's the 90-day where you can declare yourself and you have a window of those 3 months to work. But you would need to find a gig for that for 3 months. Do you know any websites in Geneva that have this kind of classified for vacant rooms to rent? So that's Glocals. I think it's glocals.org, if I remember correctly. But if you type Glocals, you will find it and you will see a lot of expats, their post, what they say about cost of living, about expenses. You see also the teachers because they would list their services there. So see how much they charge per hour and all that. What are procedures do I need to do first in terms of legal status for long-term residents when I arrive? So you can't relocate to Switzerland until you have a job. So you need the work contract first. Now, again, you have this 3 months window where you can say, I just come to Switzerland and see what it's like, experience the Swiss lifestyle because you have this right as an EU citizen. But I would really and that's for everyone watching this video, I would really caution you that to have expenses, especially in time of COVID, where we don't know exactly what's going to happen, to put all these expenses out there without having a proof of concept and a job would be very adventurous at this stage. So maybe again, the option is keep maybe looking at the situation right now in the world, how it's going. Keep your project, maybe test it a little bit more, to see what job openings are there. Look at the groups to see what people are saying. Are they really needing teaching now with teachers? I would question mark that. So test the market first before, and that's really the same advice for anyone watching right now, is before you go full-fledged on a project of relocation, and that's for any country, is do a little bit more research. So you want to move to France, or you want to move to the US or anywhere, before you say, I want to live there because I like the country. Just look at it from, I like the country, my goal would be to live there eventually, but I need to learn more about it. I need to know a little bit more, the cost of living, the kind of work that I could get. And you get that by just looking online, maybe joining. The great way is to join forums and to join groups. So if you want to relocate to Switzerland, join expat groups and see what people are saying. Where are they living? How much does it cost them? What kind of thing can you expect? Especially in terms of job markets, and right now I would say it's not growing for sure. And I said this before in videos, unless you're in tech, anything linked to tech or anything linked to international organization work, like the UN, basically, it's not really growing. So a lot of people have lost their jobs in Switzerland. So now they need to find another one. So there's only so many options because all the companies will go through the same motion. So if you were working, let's look at activities that have really had a hard time with the COVID. I mean, let's look at the hotel industry or the food industry. The restaurant industry. So if you work in restaurants, for example, in Switzerland, and you lose your job, well, chances are the other restaurants will be going through the same thing. So it's going to be hard to find another job with another restaurant. Same thing with hotels. So you have to look at it from where's the market going with COVID? And if one particular activity is really going through a lot, chances are there's not going to be necessarily other companies that are hiring. So the best way to look at it is to say, okay, what are the sectors that have thrived? Even though we're going through a lot of crisis, and what are the sectors that are damaged? So the sectors that are highly damaged, I wouldn't really suggest for people to relocate for these sectors because you're not going to find a lot of opportunities. Now, the sectors that are thriving, meaning, the Amazons, the GAFA in general, so Amazon, Facebook, someone mentioned in a question, Google is looking to hire. So all these tech companies are not going through the haddock that other companies are going through. So if you're targeting the big tech companies, the startup companies, biotech, pharma, go for it. They're hiring probably right now if you look online because they haven't suffered through the crisis. On the opposite, they're actually doing well. But if you're saying, I work in the industry of restaurants, hotels, travel, and all that, it's just logic to me that there's not going to be a lot of openings based on the crisis. So you just have to see where's your work taking you. Are you a tech person or are you a restaurant person? If you're a restaurant person, this is not the right time. So you just have to use a little bit your judgment to say, is it really worth moving right now to a country where we're going through a crisis? So I think I've said this before, is just do the wait and see. You can have your project, have a plan where you say, this is where I want to end up at some point, but what are the steps I need to take towards that? What do I need to do towards that? So, get some more information about the country, look at the job boards a bit more. And I list these in my channel everywhere, the Indeed.ch and jobup.ch. So I do share these on a regular basis. So you can check the job boards and see where the recruitment is going. I do this myself once in a while to check the ads. Again, it's heavily going, I repeat this again, it's heavily going towards tech and towards international organization. So these are the two main sectors where you can have your profile could be interesting for Switzerland. But it's not every single activity that's growing right now. You just have to be aware of that. You can also look at online articles about Switzerland to see a little bit what's going on. Are companies purchasing each other? Is there some limitations in terms of permits in some specific parts of Switzerland? So all that is something that you have to research more before you move. So again, the advice is don't move until you have some very stable project with very good potential. So the example I gave on question number 1, someone was interviewed by Google and going through the process, and when you have your job offer, that's perfect. You can move. All the lights are green. Everything is going for, you're doing well. But until you have that, I wouldn't recommend moving to a country because, again, you're taking on expenses and putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be very stressed. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. Farouk just joined. Second one is me. Well, I don't see a first one. Okay, any questions in the chat that I can answer besides the ones I just picked up right now? What's your particular situation? What are you trying to do? So again, what I could say is that in times of crisis, there's always opportunities, but it's going to be in very specific sectors. So there's lots of things going on right now with crypto, with blockchain, with again, everything in tech is actually moving very fast right now. So that would create opportunities for certain profiles. But again, it's really, really pockets of opportunities, I call them. It's not going to be across the board for everybody where, it's like a market is growing as a whole. It's certain pockets of jobs that are growing and others that are actually status quo or actually losing because they're not hiring and they're disappearing, actually, those jobs, because they're being automated at the moment. So you will find that there's probably going to be more and more automation, automatic checkout, payment processes and all that. So the jobs that are mostly the process jobs, I would say, people who go and facilitate maybe some transitions or transactions is the word I was looking for. Those jobs are going to be less in demand because they will be automated. But if you're someone who has experience, again, in tech or pharma and all these things, then you have your chance. And you speak several languages. Okay, no questions, I see. So it's 11:30 right now in this part of the world. So hopefully people catch up also this video and maybe want to ask more questions. Again, I will, because I get them via YouTube, I will probably go back next Friday and do the same thing. So feel free to post below if you catch this video a bit later and you have a question. I will address it next week. Have a great weekend and I will talk to you soon.